Hello, hello. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy September. And let's quickly start. As usual, I'm going to ask you if I'm coming through, if my audio, um, if you can hear it. Uh, let's see. My friend Zala is posting interesting questions. Just let me know if you can hear me. I'm waiting for a reply. Yes. Oh, Sharon. Hello. Hello, everyone. Yes, loud and clear. Thank you, Mahdi. So, yeah, welcome to another Ask the Trainer. We have a bunch of questions we're going to go through, and we'll see how many of the questions from the chat we can address. Let me begin with the usual housekeeping, and I'm going to switch to my screen over here, and I'm going to post some links at the same time. So, I'm producing myself today, so things will happen. So let's begin by this link over here, which I'm going to paste in the chat. Let me paste it. There you go. And if you click on the link that's going to come up right now in the chat, you'll get to this page over here that has all the Max on events, the free t-shirt we give away every month, the links to the training team YouTube channel and University. And of course, the Ask the Question for the Ask the Trainer, Ask Your Question for the Ask the Trainer forum, which has changed and now allows for certain things. Please go just click here and ask your questions. And in terms of events, I'm going to use this link over here, and you can see what's going on. IBC is going on in Amsterdam, United. When did Amsterdam become part of the United Kingdom? So IBC is going on. So if you're in Europe, just jump on a train and go. A lot of interesting stuff is happening. And what else do we have here? We have the Max on Training Team YouTube channel, where these videos are hosted after they are presented live, because we are live streaming on the Max on YouTube channel over here and the Max on Training Team YouTube channel. But the recordings are only living on the Max on Training Team YouTube channel with comments and timestamps kindly provided by Dr. Sassy. Don't forget to check out the Max on ZBrush YouTube channel to learn this amazing piece of software. And just as a token of appreciation for your participation in these shows, you go to this page over here, which again, you can find the link over here, get your t-shirt. And for the month of September, use House of Polygons, which I'm going to paste in the chat right now, to claim your free t-shirt. You only pay for postage and packaging, folding, ironing, and all that nice stuff. Now, of course, don't forget to go to University to check out all the great videos we make to educate you and entertain you. And if for any reason you require to, you think that some of the videos in the old University channel are quite urgent, we are putting in a lot of effort to uh, put as many as possible in the new YouTube channel. It's not as simple as I thought it would be. You can go to this form, the one I just pasted, and you can ask us if we could potentially expedite some of these videos. And let me see if I have anything else here. Do, 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 doom. For that original page over here, I think you can use this QR code, take a snapshot. If it doesn't work, let me know. But this QR code may allow you to get there faster. Excellent. So now we're here. There we go. We're here. And we're going to go through the list of various questions. Let me close a couple of windows. And let me put on, there you go. So this is my Cinema 4D 2024.5.1, the latest public release. And if you want to ask questions, the one thing I forgot to tell you, please preface your question with a capitalized question so I can distinguish them. I'm looking at my comments over here on my chat monitor. And if anything happens, please let me know. I'll be checking the chat. So let me hide this. And let's begin with the first question I had, which is, there you go. This is an interesting one. Is there a way to create rigid bodies that are constrained to an axis, ideally two axes? And the answer is going to be for rigid bodies, not for soft bodies. And let me show you a nice little trick which will allow you to do some interesting things. The way I'm going to set this up is, first of all, I'm going to create something similar to the Connect 4 game, where you drop things and you try to make 4 in a row. I'm going to start with this narrow cylinder, and I'm going to add a cloner and make it a child. I'm just going to say, well, I don't want them in the X. I want them in the Y axis. Good. And bring them a bit closer and bring them here a bit closer. There we go. I'm going to put a few of these. Now, when you apply the rigid body dynamic tag on a cloner, it makes each individual clone rigid body. And of course, let's add a floor to catch these little cylinders over here. I'm going to make this a collider body, turn it off in the viewport, and if I press play, they're all going to fall down and crash. Now, what happens if we just want them to go downwards and left and right? We don't want them to tilt and fall back and front as it happens over here. Look at that. And the way to do this is by using a connector. So go to the simulate and go to the connectors and use an linear connector. Sorry, use a linear connector. Now, the way connectors work in this new generation of rigid bodies is you select it and you go to the Object tab and you drag in whatever your rigid bodies are. There's quite a bit of functionality. I'm going to change this to a planar. It defines a plane by which these are going to be constrained. Now, there are a couple of things we need to do in order to create this effect. Number one, we need to rotate this collider so that it sort of coincides with the angle we want to constrain, right? So it's the Z over here and the Y over here. And the next thing, and this is the little trick, which I was missing up until a few days ago when I was informed that you select the object in question, right? One or all of the objects. And down here, it says pin to world, because currently it's trying to create connections to each other, cloner using the index. If you pin to world and you set this to distance, and you just change the distance to a certain value, what it will do, it will create a connection of each body individually. And these are only allowed to go up and down, left and right. And they're pinned to their original position. And now I can deselect so you can see better what's going on. You will see that we get the effect we want. And I can always extend this to 900 frames. And you can see that now we get this two-dimensional simulation. So if you're doing something like this, it's perfect. Previously, we had to use colliders and make a narrow collider and put them in and reverse and so forth and do all sorts of things, which was advice I gave a user recently until I found out about this little thing. So my job to transfer the knowledge I get from other people has been achieved. So pin to world, and it will pin the original position. And you can use this in many different contexts to pin the world. You can make gears that are interlocking and only drive one of them and so forth. So this is the way to do this. So let me close this and let me move to another question. First, I'm going to do a quick browse of the chats to see. Let's see here a few questions. Let me go to the chat over here so I can copy and paste. I'm watching all the stuff on the Mac, but I have to copy and paste over here. So let me go up and mark a few questions. Let's mark them. Let's begin with Leandro's question and see if I can answer that. How to reduce transparency in render time with Redshift, um, I assume this is simple in the sense that you just keyframe the opacity parameter. So let's see if that's going to work. I'm going to make a cube behind a sphere so we can see through the sphere, and make a Redshift material, put it on the sphere. Let me turn on Redshift here, and let me start the render view. Excellent. And in the material, what I'm going to do, and I always like to bring it down here so we have a bit more space to work. What I can do is go down and find the opacity, this opacity, and let's see if this is going to work. I'm going to keyframe the opacity here, and on frame 30, I'm going to make this black, and I'll keyframe the opacity, and now the object will fade in and fade out, as you can see in the render view over time. And you can drive this parameter with a color that does something else. You can get it from various ways, but this is the gist of it. So if there's a follow-up question, please ask, and I'll see what I can do. Let me read. What else do we have here? I'm going to post this and I'm going to read it online. I know it might be slightly off topic for this session, but I hope your experts can help me with some advice. I run a 3D design studio specializing in product rendering, animations, and visuals. I'm trying to grow my client base and would love to decide on how to best reach potential clients in the industry. Who within companies should I contact? Well, my experience in this is an interesting question, right? This is an interesting question. Um, it depends what companies you're working with. When I was in the UK, I was doing a lot of freelance work, and I went through a recruitment agency because they are the only source I should contact, and they would always contact me and so forth. Sometimes it's creative directors, sometimes it's the owners themselves. It depends on the industry, it depends on the company, it depends on many things. Word of mouth is another thing. The more the word goes around that you do certain things and you're good at them, the more potential for clients you're going to have. So I don't have any robust advice. The only thing I will say is do not be shy and always follow up. The people that deal with these things, producers and creative directors and so forth, are very busy and they miss stuff. And I always say it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. Send an email to whomever you think. Sometimes you can they sell catalogs, lists of companies that have names and contacts and so forth. Send an email, CC a few people, make it pleasant, show your value, because every company wants to, do stuff that are going to promote their product. And if you can show that you can do that, you're an asset to that company. No one should give you work, and no one is obliged to give you work because you're a nice person. No, the people want efficiency and a good product. So yeah, I would say just the general rule is, despite who you're going to contact, is to be persistent, to be polite, and always follow up. If you don't, unless you receive that email that says, "Thank you very much, we are not interested," my rule is that keep following up, because the person that's going to say, "Oh, buddy, stop it," is a person you don't want to work with anyway. So be courteous, be polite, and maybe in a week's time, follow up and see what the reply is. Okay, so and go to events, right? Go to industry events and meet people. The reality is that I've seen in front of me in real time artists and people that own studios meet other artists and other people that owned studios, and these collaborations formed in real time in front of me at trade shows. So take a trip if you can and go and meet like-minded people and collaborate. Okay. Let's see now. There's a quick question here. Following the C40 getting started training, but it's out of date as far as Redshift rendering, so a little confusing. Any advice figure that out? I'm not absolutely sure which C40 getting started, unless I don't know if it's EJ's series or the Redshift getting started. But in any case, we always keep posting videos, and I'm not sure of the exact plan of releasing a new getting started. When, because we're always trying to renew our tutorials. Uh, there is the check out the quick tips that talk about Redshift. Our dear friend and colleague Ellie Wade is doing a lot of Redshift quick tips and so forth. If you have something specific, you can use the form, ask the question, and we will do our best to reply. Good. So let's continue with something else. So because I usually forget to turn on my Cinema 4D screen, I did it right now. A lot of people spend a lot of time watching me talk without showing my monitor. The people that know, they just know. Okay, so let me mark this and go to one of the other questions. I need to switch tabs. Okay, all right, this is an interesting one. So my very dear friend, Oliver Lueza from Chile, that always does an amazing work. And he's a friend of mine, I have to speak about him in the best words. He's a dear friend. A few years ago, he did a project called NF Tree, and it was one of those puns from Max on, uh, not against, but playing on the NFTs. And he created a nice little visual. If you go and say NF Tree Oliver Lueza on YouTube, you will see that video. And there was a very specific effect. And I'm going to bring it up. I'm just going to, where's my secret window here? Is it here? There it is, NF Tree. And it was something he did using X particles. And it was basically using a cloner setup to do whatever he's doing, and then create these intermediate lines. And using X particles, excuse me, using X particles, there was a very particular method. And the question was, can we do this with our own particles? And the answer I have now, we cannot, because the part that was used for X particles was not X particles itself. It was one of those generators, which is similar to our tracer object, but traces nearby points. And we can construct something like that using nodes. And there was a question about nodes, which I'm going to briefly reply to. But you don't need to. We can reproduce this using our standard MoGraph tools if this is what you want to create. So let me very quickly, I'm going to show you what I've done here, and I'm just going to, let me take you, let me get rid of, let me do a quick overview of what we have over here. So the first thing is I created using Booleans this little cube. I've essentially just connected, unioned the two of these Booleans, and those two Booleans then, that union gets a third one. So now I have these three watertight cylinders, and then I subtract them from my cube and I create this, right? This is my base object, right? So this is my base cloner. And then I'm using a cloner with grid mode with 23, 25, and 27 of these. But the grid cloner down here, it's not very well known. You can actually use an object to sort of mask this. Cubic is the main way this is done. And you can see I've got quite a lot. And I'm using the main sphere here. If you change this to object and you drag the main sphere, then this is the sphere that allows you to grow this grid to whatever shape you want. And it could be another object. I'm just using a sphere for convenience, right? Now, then what I'm doing is I'm creating a bunch of, let me turn this on, have cloned the cloned spheres, and I need to turn on the line. So then I created the cloned wires. And basically what I've done here, I've taken a cube of a certain size. The size of this cube is the distance I've got for the previous cubes. Why am I doing this? Because I want to create some sort of shape where the edges, I'm going to use these edges as those final lines I did. So basically, I just clone these cubes, and I'm using a similar method with a larger sphere. The cubes have the same distance, but the cubes are slightly bigger, 22, 22, 22. So the edges coincide. And I'm just connecting it to make one single object with weld on. So all these points now are welded. And this is sort of an object that you can see inside. There are more cubes. See the back side of the cube. So it's full of these little cubes, which is just a singular mesh now. So what I'm doing then, I'm taking, it's not this one, it's this one here. And I'm cloning some spheres on these edges. Actually, that's what I did last. These lines here, which is the important part of this, I'm using another cloner that has a capsule. And this is a very thin capsule, 0.2 and 27. And I'm using the cloning mode edge. So it's putting one of those cloners, and if I delete this, what you will see, let me take this capsule and make it smaller. What we're doing, we are cloning these capsules on each edge because I've set this cloner to be in object mode. I've set the lines object to be the object we're using to clone on, and I'm using the edges to clone these things on. So if I set this, for example, to vertex, it's going to put it on the points. But if I put this to edge, it's going to put it on the edge. You just have to change the orientation to make it go along the line. And then we have these offsets where we can make it go left and right and go in all sorts of directions and create all sorts of interesting things. But if you put scale on edge, then what will happen, and I'm going to put this offset at 50, it will stretch this capsule to take up the whole space of each and every one of the edges. And you can scale it down, scale it up, and the offset's going to move it left or right and do all that nice stuff. So now what I have here, I have all these little capsules on all these little edges. So I can go to my lines and hide them and just leave the edges. And just to round this thing off, I added little spheres here. So from a certain distance, and you can make the sphere a bit bigger, it's 0.22. You can put your cursor there and go with your up arrow. You can create these nice little domes. And there you have it. This is, and you can control it using the large sphere if you want it to expand, if you want it to contract. You can change the other sphere. So it's semi-procedural to a certain way. So if this is your objective, you don't need to connect points. You just need to make a slightly offsetted, because this clone lines, I think one of these, I think this is it. Which one have I offset a bit? Transform, is it this one? What have I transformed? I was under the impression that I've moved something. There you go. I've took all these lines and I offsetted them by half the distance, so they don't overlap with the cylinders. Look at that. Now they're overlap. I'm just moving them by half the distance, and I think I've moved the large sphere. No, I haven't. But in any case, this is what you would get, and this is the MoGraph way of doing it. What we are trying to do for the near future is find a way to allow you to download some of these projects. So we have a repository. We have a repository of a lot of these files. And once that is deployed, the mechanism is deployed because it has to be secure for you and secure for us as well. You will be able to go and download scenes like these, and you will be duly notified if when that happens, because it will happen. We're in the process of doing it. Fantastic. So let me check the comments here and see what else. Oh, so the question was, like to know how to reduce render time when we have transparent materials such as glass in the scene. Well, rendering time is not a, you have to compromise, right? And the compromise is quality. So yeah, if it's just transparency you want or opacity you want, it depends if you have index of refraction, if you have any dispersion, any of that. But in general terms, if you want to start optimizing things, first of all, in the Redshift Advanced, you can start using, turn off the sampling, the automatic sampling in the Redshift Advanced sampling. Turn off this and then go to refraction, for example, and use override the samples. So you can use less samples. That will create a grainier image for the refractions or the reflections or any of these types of rays, but will increase your speed. Another thing you could potentially do, and these are just general suggestions, is in your materials here, if you go to a material and look at transmission, it says samples here. So you can play with these samples to make it calculate faster. You can also go to your general sample size, even if you have automatic sampling. The larger you make this number, the grainier, but the faster the image becomes. So, and then of course, I'm going to say this unapologetically, you get a faster graphics card. That was pretty much a joke. But if productivity is your issue, maybe a render farm or something like that, or a second GPU in your system. But it all depends on what you're trying to do, what the times are, what the savings are. If you have a number of frames you want to render and you're going to save a total of, I don't know, half an hour, and you spend 1 hour optimizing it, then that's not worth it, because computer time is much cheaper than artist time. So if there's a particular scene where you have a specific problem, isolate that particular element in that scene and contact us so we can see, or hit me up on Twitter talking about Twitter. You can always ping me or Jonas Pills on Twitter, X, Twixer, whatever you want to call it. My DMs are open for questions, but please, I beg you, please use scenes that don't have redundant elements. I get a lot of stuff that have third-party renderers, Octane and stuff like that. I do not have them. I do not have X particles. I use vanilla Cinema 4D because that's the majority of problems I solve, and simplify the scenes. If it's not about materials, then remove all materials. If it's not about a particular object, remove all the, if it's about a particular object, remove all the other objects. Please don't send me production scenes, as it makes it extremely hard for me to troubleshoot and find the issue. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. What do we have here? Let me let me read. I animated material parameters, but on the dope sheet without automatic mode, it's not showing. Is there any other way? See, yeah, I think there's a minor glitch with the automatic mode. The easiest way is to drag and drop whatever is animated in your timeline. In case someone didn't know, automatic will show you anything that's animated. Now we have no keyframes. If I add a keyframe, it will appear here. If I go to this object, add a keyframe, it will appear here. But if you want to do something with another object, just drag it and drop it in here. Oops. There you go. So this is the way you would do it. Just drag whatever objects you want and drag them in here, and you will see them regardless if they're animated or not. But that turns off the automatic mode. Automatic will take you to whatever automatic is, and that's the easiest way to do it. Okay. Oh, this is not a good one. I accidentally saved over my original project file in Cinema 4D. Can I recover the original file? Only if you haven't closed the file yet. You undo until you get to the point, because one little trick I'd like to show you. So whenever I install a new version of Cinema 4D, and because I do alpha and beta testing, that is a lot of versions. If you go to the preferences, pressing Control or Command E, or going here and bringing up the preferences, in the memory, there's this beautiful undo depth, which defaults at 30. No, set it at the maximum, which is 1,000. This gives you 1,000 undos. And I have had in the past where I saved over a project. You just undo 100 times to get back to your previous state. And you then save that using a different name so you don't even lose your new work. But if you've closed the file, you're done. That's why we suggest that in the files, again, in the preferences, you create, I don't like autosave, people do. But what you can do is create backup copies. And what happens with the backup copies, you set this to any number, it won't save on top of that file. What it will do is your new save is going to become the saved file. And let me hide this. The new save is going to become the saved file. The previous one is going to become the file name .bak backup one. And so the naming changes, and you always retain a certain number of saves. So this is my advice. If you do that or work with a lot of different versions of your file, it's good to increase your backup copies and then just go and clean up, right? Set this to any number. I don't even know how far. Oh, 1,000. Yeah, you can have 1,000 files. So I think that's going to be sufficient. So turn this up to any number of files. But as far as you've saved it, you close Cinema 4D, unfortunately, there is no solution to that. I don't think any software has any solution for that. Maybe if you saved on a shared folder like a Dropbox and all that, some of these services offer a backup service where they keep different versions of the file. I'm not sure how to do it in a particular platform, but maybe that's a solution. But within Cinema 4D, unfortunately, that is not possible. Okay, let's see. Let's see what this is. Do you have a projector file that can clone an object direct, for example, light hit the surface? So you want to project something and clone on that point. Not directly. So the way you could do something like this, it will require a bit of fiddling, maybe a bit of nodes or XPresso or something like that. We do have the ability to fire raise and find the point. Let's try this. Why not? If I have to overrun, I'm going to overrun. Let's see if this works. Now, if you're using, I'm going to use XPresso. I'm not going to use nodes. So with XPresso, you sometimes for certain functions you can't work with the procedural objects. They have to be editable, right? So let's make this editable. Let's go and add programming XPresso tag, and let's see if I can make this happen. If I feel that it's going too long, I will just drop it. Somewhere in here in XPresso, there's a ray something, a ray collision, right? And what we're trying to do is get the object from here. And we're trying to do a ray collision to find a point on this object. And in the collision, we can get the collision point, and you will see here, it will probably, if this is a Boolean, you can see down here on the left, when I hover over it, it's a Boolean. It should give me a hit position as well. So the way you use this is you use 2 points. And let me create 2 nulls. I'm going to create 1 and 1, 2. Select them both. I'm going to call this 1 and 2. Select them both. And let's go and make them into little spheres. I'm going to move 1 over here. And I'm going to move 1 over here. And there is a line that connects these two, right? Now, I'm going to drag them both in. And I'm going to go to the position. the easiest way to get the position is select the object, go here and get the position. Select the other one, select the object and get the position. So what this is going to do is going to fire a ray from one point to the other. And where these two, where those lines meet this, so because it's going through the sphere, it's going to give you 2 points. Yeah, it's going to give you all sorts of information. This hit position is a point. So what I could do for this, and let's see if this is going to work. I'm going to make my sphere, my new sphere 10. Nice little sphere that's 10. I'm going to drag it in here, and I'm going to tell it to assume the position I got from hit position. And let's see. Well, it ain't doing anything. The hit position, put it in sphere position. We have ray point 1, ray point 2, global coordinates, test only. There you go. This test only. If any developers watching, this should not be on by default. So there we go. And now when I move these points, I'm actually putting that over there. So a programmatic method will allow you to do this using the ray collision mode. Good. So let's see what else we have down here. Where are we? Where are we? So we don't have it as a field. Now, another thing you potentially could do is I did do, if you go to my YouTube channel, YouTube at Noseman, I think I did, yeah, contact me on Twitter and I will send you, it will go to my YouTube channel, at Noseman. So YouTube/@Noseman. And I did something with ray collisions that show how you could do this with nodes. Now, I did it a long time ago. Some things may have changed, but the general principles are there. And you can use those points generated to create clones. It was a question that came to me from a forum. Okay. Yeah, the Fold My design, it's old. I don't use it. I can't. Again, ask the question so we can deal with it. It's nothing I can help you with now, Tony. So sorry. Okay. Andreas. Hello, Andreas. I did a walk cycle. My body mesh is breaking through my clothes. What's a good way to fix this? Pose morph, some sort of point morph, and so forth. So there are quite a few ways you can do this. The number one thing you can try, well, not everything will provide you a solution. So let's do this very quickly with a 50 by 50 plane. I'm just going to use simulation, and I'm going to get a sphere, make the sphere a collider, and make this a cloth. So right click, simulation, and cloth, right? So I always expand this. And we have this, and you don't want it to collide, all right? One way is, first of all, cache things. When you're happy with the animation, and then you have to deal with minor issues, tweakies, and stuff like that, always cache your animation so you can work on that on a baked level. But before that, if you go to the settings, simulation, and go to simulation, make sure that you have enough substeps that your cloth is flowing nicely. The higher the substeps, the stiffer the cloth. Don't forget about that. Check the collision passes. So you may need to increase these to 4 or 8 each. Set end frame pass. Try 1 or 2 iterations for the iteration, smoothing iterations. Okay, so that will be your first line of defense, so to speak. Now, if you still have penetrations with that, and it's something you would like to take care of, before you touch anything else, in your cloth, what you could do is extend the thickness, all right? Or extend the thickness of the No, the collider doesn't have a thickness, but what you could do here is you can set this to a cloth object and just go to the mix animation and turn on pins. It will react as a collider, but you have some more control. The mix animation pins 100% without any map here will keep it in place, just like the follow position and follow rotation. And because here we have the collision thickness, you can set this to, let's say, 20, and the cloth is going to bounce further away from the object, which it is not. Thickness 50. I do not like it when this happens at all. So let's go here and set the thickness to 20 as well. And we have, you can see a bigger distance between the two objects. But if everything else fails, you first cache your object into an Alembic, right? And then there's a trick with the Alembic. So let's go and cache this. And I'm going to cache it externally. And I'm just going to set this to 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, or something like that. And let's cache this object, okay? So let me quickly go find a folder. I'm going to use today's folder just to make sure. Name it 1, 2, 3, save. It's caching now. Oh, 900 frames. Maybe I shouldn't have done 900 frames. Maybe I should have done 200 frames or 150 frames. Sorry about that. So let me go again and cache object. And again, I have to put a name. Right, so let's let it do something for a second. Good. So this is an Alembic file now. Okay. Now, if I take this file, so if I make it editable here, it will keep this, but the way it's linked through the cloth tag is not sufficient. But you can reload the Alembic. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to go to my Alembic. I'm just going to drag my Alembic in. I'm going to press Shift to merge it. So this here now is your full animation, but it's a pure Alembic file. If you take any Alembic file and you make it editable, what it does is it makes a proper mesh object, but it applies the Alembic data using this tag. And the reason this happens is that this now allows you to add deformers as well, a correction deformer and stuff like that. So if you have a point of your mesh, let's go rotating lines, that's good. If I have a part of my mesh which I want to sort of displace, change, and all that, I can do a correction deformer. I can, let's see here. I can freeze this and I can go and change a few points potentially. Let's move this up. So now you can see that point has moved up. You can use your brushes and so forth to correct this, get these points out of the way. And then what you could do, if you want that for frame 90, you animate the correction deform or use a field or anything like that. Set it to 0. So now what this is going to do, it's going to do the Alembic, and from 80 to 90, it's going to move these up, as you can see here. And you can go locally and do changes to many parts of your model and just do one animation or something like that. Or it could be, you can modify it slightly and it won't be very visible during the rest of the animation anyway. So something in those grounds. And other ways are you add to your, so let me undo, told you about the 1,000 undos. Let's go here and go back to when this was, there you go. And even further back when this wasn't even cached. Sometimes you just need to do manual things like make a second collider object and scale it down, and let's move it here because you want extra padding, make this invisible. And that's where, see, you get that secondary thing. So you can modify your colliders or whatever else you're doing to avoid that getting too close. Now, having said all that, it's not always good news. There are certain types of collisions, especially with characters, where you get the cloth going under the armpits or behind the knees or in places where it's literally impossible for the simulation in its particular state to avoid that collision, especially when your collider object folds upon itself. That is a huge edge case when that happens, and it's very difficult for the collisions to pull it out of the intersection, because where is the intersection, especially if you have a collider that has folded onto itself and the polygons are inside and so forth. So yeah, that's where you probably go and manually do that. Okay, let's see here. Where were we? Uh, materials animated drag options. I'm not sure I understand the question. Yeah, if you could rephrase it or do the usual Twitter thing. Okay. How do you create good chromatic material? Are you talking about sorry about that. Woo, that was a little sneeze. It's getting colder here in Canada. So again, I don't know exactly the chromatic material, if it's a transparent with dispersion or something like that. Let's see what we are. Where are we? Can you give me an overview? I'm continuing down with the questions. So I have my questions ready. So I'm going to look into the questions and see if this is the one you asked. I do not get names on the question, so I can't associate it with someone. So let me go over here and let me find the next question. Right. Here we have the next question. Toothpaste comes out of a tube and is poured on the ground. Um, I'm going to show you how to make it come out of the tube, a couple of methods. Falling onto the ground is a different thing. Yeah, we can probably simulate that using a rope. But let's go on with the toothpaste. So I've created two versions here. One with spline, one with particles, and this is sort of a simple one where I've got a toothpaste from the asset manager. If you type tooth, you get a toothpaste. There you go. You have this toothpaste. It's from the asset browser, and I'm just using the align to spline to sweep it on a spline. Okay. Now the other thing I've done, and what I'm using to move it around, is a null. And the reason is because now I can take my thing and turn it up and down, turn it that way, and it's going to retain its motion. I don't, very often, I don't um, align to spline the object itself. If I'm planning to rotate it or something, I do it under a null. At the same time, I have this little nozzle here, which is just a null. And in order to um, find where the center of that is to create my toothpaste, I'm actually just tracing it, and I'm tracing the paths. So I'm creating a line, as you can see, and I'm just sweeping that line. All right. And then you can put all sorts of deformers here and do all sorts of trick to make it look a bit more gooey. Now, another way to do this is the similar method, but I'm emitting particles, and the particles have no velocity whatsoever. So the property is 0 speed, and it's a continuous emission. And what I'm doing here is I'm emitting these particles, and let's turn it on and on. There you go. So I'm creating just a bunch of particles here because it's static. And then I'm just meshing these particles and using a volume builder. And this creates a similar effect, and maybe it can be a bit more yucky because it's a mesher. Let me turn this off in the viewport. So that will be another way. Now, in terms of dropping it on the floor, that would be an interesting one. What I would try, without getting into too much, I like to create straight lines by using the end side with two sides. It creates a straight line. Always go and make this uniform. Let's make it 64. And what I'm going to do is, let's make it editable and go and add. What am I going to add? I'm going to add from the other tags, a vertex map. And I'm going to put a value on the first point up here. Okay. Now, you may need to subdivide this. So I think it's US. So let me go and select all the points. Go here, select all the points. US, 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 US. Right. Now I'm going to go here and I have the first point or the first 2 points with a value of 1. Now, if I make this a rope, and I go to my mix animation and I say, mix with pins, but use this. What this is going to do is going to do the opposite of what you expect it to do. It's going to keep everything non-simulated. The higher values are the simulated ones. So I just need to invert this, right? So you go here and you invert it. So what's going to happen now is that my rope is held up here, which means I can add some animation to it. I can put a plane with a collider and turn this off. And this is going to, yeah, it's just that I have too many points. And I think my collision, my radius is could be a bit too big. And bendiness, stretchiness, and of course, to make things stiffer, I'm going to set this to 80. And let's see. It's falling. Oh, yeah, I forgot why. Because the simulation is the vertex map is calculated on the points, but the simulation is calculated on the uniform subdivisions. So I'm going to set this to 2, and they were too close, and the value of my radius was still too large. So this should fall down and sort of curl up. Yeah. So if I take this now and animate it downwards, so I'm going to add a keyframe here, go to frame 50 and bring it down. What should happen is that this should, let's go to presets and turn off this and this. And let's see what this is going to do. It should, there you go. So something like this, and you don't want it to fiddle around. So what can we do? You can damp the animation in your simulation settings. You can increase the damping of the simulation, and this will make it feel less, let's say, flimsy, something like this. And let me go closer so you can see it. And in order to create the paste itself, what you could do when I'm working with splines, what I do like to do is use a cylinder. If I'm making something, not a sweep, I'm going to use a cylinder. And I'm going to use for the cylinder a spline wrap. I want it on the Y, minus Y, I think. And I'm going to use my thing over here. Make sure you have enough subdivisions, and it's the height segments I want to do here. Make the cylinder 2. So now my little toothpaste, toothpaste. There you go. So you can do something like this. And because my collision is smaller than the radius, it actually falls upon itself just like some sort of cream. But you can play around with your collision radius if you want this to avoid itself and so forth. Yeah, it's a bit too big now for my intermediate points. That's why it wiggles. But in any case, this will be a third way to sort of do something like this. And then you can go and smooth it. Oh, look at that, toothpaste. And if you want to make it grow larger and smaller, you just go to your spline wrap, and you can control how much goes down and where it starts, where it ends, and just offset. You can offset it, and it goes whoop. So there are ways to do this and add some secondary animation. Okie dokie. So first of all, I want to tag some questions. Um, let's see, what do we have here? You're not adding question at the beginning, and I'm losing my question. So let me just mark these. Yeah, for the glass question, you just add it on the material. It's called dispersion, and it's in the transmission, and it's dispersion, the Abbey number. This is what controls the dispersion, but it's going to become slower. Okay, what do we have here? Let me go further down. Let me go to a few questions from the form. And okay, this could be interesting. Instead of using the project command to draw a line onto a mesh, drawing a spline path for a road, is there a procedural way to control this? Maybe nodes. You don't need a procedural way if this is what you want. You will use a projector object, the projector deformer. Okay, so let's set this up very quickly. Because there are a couple of things you need to remember. Just I'll make it darker so that it doesn't interfere with our spline. Now, the couple of things you need to do. If you're going to use a projector projection deformer, first of all, you need to tell it where it's projecting, upwards, downwards, or whatnot. But your spline needs to be on that side of your object, right? So now it will project downwards. And by definition, if you draw in the top view, it projects upwards. Okay. I think I need to change this color a bit, and we'll make it bluish or something so I can see it. So go to your, let's say, sketch spline, do one point a bit, and we're going to use this later on, and project the spline on object over there. So we're going to watch this thing happening here. That is my little spline over there. Anything I draw here should be projected, but you see it's projecting downwards. So there's nothing underneath the spline to be projected. So change this to plus and to plus. Oh yeah, I'm not projecting that spline. So put it in the spline we're projecting. And now you can see it's projecting from the bottom. So anything now, if I go here and I keep painting, make sure you select the spline to keep painting. Now I'm actually painting on the surface. Okay, and this will be a procedural method. Don't rotate that. There we go. You can even draw here, but here's the difference. When we draw on the 3D view, it draws on the camera plane, on this plane here. So there's a good chance, oh, it is projecting, good, but it's projecting it a bit differently than expected. But in any case, here it's safe to project. And that's how you paint things in a procedural way. You can turn it off, you can turn it on, you can see where the splines are, and so forth. These are the ones I drew with the camera, just so that you know. And this is how you project things. Oh, great. I had the question up. Wasn't visible here. We make sure projection, these were visible, and the object. So it appears that it was quite visible. Sorry about that. That's what happens when I self-produce. Okay, then I'm going to go to this interesting. So we have a logo, and we want all the topology of the geo to break up. I've truncated this question, so it's easier. It was quite a long one. We want the geo to break up using Voronoi Fracture, but not the logo. I want the logo to stay in one piece. And I have a logo. I have something like this, which everything will sort of fall apart except for the logo. Let's wake up. There you go. Because I've got quite a few pieces, and you can see that the letters stay intact, whereas everything else breaks up. Excellent. So let's see how we could put together something like this. Let me close some files. Let me close everything. Close. Oh, no. A little button will be great here that says close everything. And then people are going to complain that, oh, I clicked it by mistake and I closed all my files without saving. Okay. First of all, sip of coffee. Cheers to everyone. And now I'm going to get rid of the question. So let's do it with a sphere. So let's take the sphere and let's leave it in its default state. Now, let's go and fracture this using Voronoi Fracture. We can see all the nice little, do the opposite. Let's go and add more points. So let's make this, I don't know, 1,000. So we have all these nice little fragments, even more, I think, 3,000. That's good enough, all right, for what we're trying to do. So one of the Voronoi Fracture features, I can turn these off, just the visibility, is geometry glue. And it uses a fall-off. Now, there's a mysterious object in Cinema 4D called a fall-off object. And it's just the recipient of fields, nothing more than that. So you enable geometry glue, it says fall-off, and you add a fall-off object. And what you're going to do here is we can add something, fields. So let's say M for Maxon. Let's put it in the middle. Let's go to one of my views here, scale it down, and move it in here. There you go. So it's inside the object, and you can pull it out if you want to see it. And let's go to the fall off and drag this in here. Now, the default state of any spline you drag in here is along. We need to set this to mask. It's not a curve, it's a mask. And along the Z axis, you can see now the M has welded any of these fragments that are part of this field. So let me go and add more of these points. 10,000. This is going to be slow because the sphere is quite thick. There you go. But we have that M here now. So from this point onwards, if we make this into a rigid body, it's going to fracture and the M is going to stay all together because it goes all the way from front to back. And this is mainly the technique you're going to use. If for any reason you want this M to stay there and not move, I think you can do that using a MoGraph selection. And you need to be able to pick that one clone. That ain't gonna be easy. Yeah, I do not know which one of these points is that one clone. This is something I need to think about, but it's just one of those things that should be in the midpoint, but the midpoint has other points as well. Too bad. Too bad. But in any case, you just tell your rigid body that this body is not going to be affected. But this will allow this to remain intact when the simulation happens. Okay, let's continue down my list. Okay, this is, again, a very interesting one. So when you're emitting a particle and you are cloning on the particles, and you add a random effect as the particles, but the particles happen to die, all weird things seem to happen, but it's not a bug. All right, let me show you what this means exactly. I've got my own little particle layout here. Let's create a basic emitter. And let's get a little sphere, a teeny weeny little sphere. And let's use a cloner to clone the teeny weeny little sphere. And we're going to clone on the object, and the object is going to be the particle group. And now we should see particles. I'm going to set multi-instance to make it faster. Good. So now let's go to the particle emitter and make sure that some of them die. Okay. Before they die, let's go to this cloner and add a random effector. Right. And you can see they're all nicely randomized, right? Nothing bad is happening. Now you would say, okay, if I change the lifetime of these little buggers, nothing serious should happen. And yet, this happens. Now, the reason why this happens, there's a very specific reason, and understanding this will allow you to understand some of the intricacies of MoGraph as well. In the particle world, each particle has a unique identifier. Even if a particle dies, that unique identifier, its own DNA, dies with it. No other particle is going to be generated with the same ID. And that's how we ensure that there's consistency in our particle system. MoGraph, on the other hand, does not work this way. MoGraph, for every cloner it creates, and for any clones that are alive at any given moment, each one has an index, right? Each one has an index. But when one of them passes away, the particle, and these are not the indices of the particles, unless no particles die, and only if you have a single cloner in your scene. Because for each cloner, we're going to have indices from 0 to whatever number it is. What happens when particles start dying, we're going to see them dying, is that the index of that particle gets reassigned. And the random effector, when we use it in random mode, uses the particle's ID to randomize it. The seed, what we call the seed, is a number that guarantees that the random number we're going to get is repeatable. It's not, it won't be random every single time we play the animation. If I close this file, open it in 6 months, it should do the same thing. And that's because the seeds, those numbers, are based on a stable value. But when particles start dying, then the new particle is going to have a new index from the beginning. And that causes the random effector to create this effect, because now we're getting the indices shuffled. The solution is very simple. You can change your randomization thing into something like a noise. So now you can see that whether they're dying or not, we get this stability. And the other way to do it is, instead of a random effector, you can use a plain effector with whatever randomization you want to add to this. And in the fields, use a random field. But the random field should not be in random mode, because you're going to have exactly the same problem, but you can have a noise. So I'm just going to make it larger. This is not the same flickering. Look at that, going up and down nicely. And it doesn't matter because it's not tied to the index. It's tied to the field. If I put it on random, we're going to get the same thing, which you can always consider this a feature. So that's why this was happening. All you have to do is to choose a randomization mode that has some sort of stability independent of the MoGraph index. And the random field, the random mode, and the random effector in its default state, random effector, uses that index as the seed to retain the randomization for that particular clone. But because clones and particles, if particles are dying, don't have aligned indices, that's why this happens. I hope this answers your question. You'll find a solution with the other method over there. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay, this is the last one from the online questions, and then I'm gonna check the chat. We are 9 minutes over. Maybe we can go another few minutes. So I want to use a spline and deform a landscape object to conform to the spline, to cut a road and all that. I don't know if this is exactly what you want to do. I'm going to show you a general method, and let's see if that's going to how that's going to work. So the best way to do this is to construct your landscape using fields, because then we're going to use fields to do the opposite. Now, there are many ways to do these things as usual, and I'm going to keep it as procedural as possible. A sip of coffee. So in order to create a landscape or terrain, we start with a plane effector, and we set it to points mode, and make sure that we are going in the normal direction. That is the Y for polygons. So this is it. Now what we're going to do is, using fields, we are going to change that field list so we get all sorts of interesting randomizations. My favorite noise, if anyone watches my tutorials, is Luca. Make it bigger, and we have this nice landscape. And you can work with quite a few polygons here. Let's go 300 by 300. That 9 and 4 zeros, 90,000 polygons or something like that. Maybe I got my math wrong. And or 900,000. Anyway, so what I want to do now is carve a road on this. Mind you, the great thing about fields, I'm just going to put this up there, is that, you know, I can make a nice little sphere here. You get a nice little sphere, and the sphere, for example, you can multiply it with the rest, and the sphere is going to define where your landscape is going to exist. And you can go to remapping, and you can change the curve, and you can sort of change the way this goes in and out. And it's amazing how you can do these things. So since we've done this, let's go and make a road. I'm not gonna project the road. I'm just gonna go and create a little spline here with my road. I have my desert there, my terrain, and there's a road that goes through, and then the road suddenly goes this way and then this way because I don't know, the company that built the road had some extra budget and thought put some curves there. And all you have to do now is go to your field list and add this on top. And make sure that when you're doing this, that it's again mask and it's on the Y. We need to project it on the Y, how wide it's going to be. And you can use this, for example, to get the, let's say, the minimum or maximum value. Is that max? No, it's multiply. Now I need to do the opposite. So let me see what's going on here. Let's turn these off. I've got my spline. It's set to, oh, it's masking. I want, sorry, a curve along and radius. There we go. It's curve, but along and radius. And we can control this. But I want to do the opposite. So I will subtract this, right? So now I'm using the value of that spline to subtract from what's going on. And we have all sorts of, you know, you can clip the shape, make it wider, along instead of along and, I want just radius. There you go. Not along and radius, just radius. So it applies. So the along mode creates the along creates a gradation along this. The radius just gets the radius of this spline, and a long and radius does both. If I put it on long and radius, you will see that some of these receive a smaller value, but just radius does this. And yeah, it's just up to creating your road. Then you can reset this and create some sort of fall off here of how far or close it goes and stuff like that. And you can use other fields to create all sorts of interesting things over here. Now, I'm not going to clip to shape. I'm curious about why it's not tapering off. Fall off radius. Something's happening with, no, it is when it becomes bigger. All right. This is something I need to look into. I was expecting this to go a bit smoother on each side. Okay, well, subtract. All right, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. And you can add all sorts of things in verses and stuff like that. But in any case, this will be the fundamental way about going to create a road just by stacking fields. And of course, if you want more manual control, then you can always, you know, manually paint, but not on a procedural object. You can use the freeze layer, or can you? Let's try this. I mean, let's create a freeze layer, but I can't paint on a freeze layer, can I? I cannot paint on a freeze layer. No. So forget about it. A vertex map, maybe. That's another thing you can do. You can even get a vertex map from another object and use it here. But in any case, this is the fundamental way you would go about doing something like this. Okay, let's see what else do we have. I'm done with the questions I could get to, and I'm going to another 10 minutes maybe just go through the comments and find any questions here. So we have wolves, and I'm using a wolf for a scene. I made the hair on the object and then animate the wolf, bake the alembic. Now, can I transfer the hair to the alembic, or how do I bake the hair on the wolf to be or not to be? To be part. The same question was posted. You can bake Alembic hair if it doesn't work for you, and the best way, the hair should follow the object. Unless I'm not understanding exactly the question, you can save when you save as Alembic. If you go here and say export Alembic ABC, and let me put a number. Sorry about that. Let's go Alembic. I forgot to click on the gear icon. You can save the hair as curves, and I assume you did that, and they're going to be saved as curves. But that is a setting you need to click. And for anyone that didn't notice, the Baker's Alembic from the right click now has this gear icon, so you can set your settings. It doesn't read them from that export, which was a bit clumsy to do. So you can set this to hair curves and so forth. Another alternative way, depending on what you want to do with that model, is to tell your hair to generate. You go roots, oh, not as guides, but generate splines. So you can generate splines, which means you can export this your hair to pretty much any software, but the files are going to be heavy because they're going to have a lot of splines. Okay, so let me close this, and if there's a specific thing about that scene which you can't get to do, my advice is get a simple object, do whatever a simple animation, maybe a deformer or something like that, that looks okay in the viewport with hair, and export that. Don't try and test things on your final model. And if there's a problem with that, DM me at Noseman GR on Twixer, and I'll take a look. Let's see this one. I have these particles that when they are rendered, they appear in the wrong position, but they are where they are supposed to be in the viewport. Why is that? I don't know. Sorry. Have you moved the group? Let's test this. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to take this particle group and move it here. See what happens. And if I render this, what happens? Yep, that's a reason. You move your particle group. Problem solved. Don't move your particle group because it uses the global space of this to transpose the particles. There's no reason for you to move the particle group unless you bake them and you want to move the cached one. So another problem solved. So where are we here? Which question was that? Let's see if it's further down. The wolf. Oh yeah, I read this. So I've had a little problem this morning getting my. So I have a lot of versions of Cinema 4D for reasons you may understand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I have about 25 different versions of Cinema 4D running on my computer. And I managed to create it so to get into a situation where After Effects and Cineware is a bit confused as to which one of these it's going to use. And I don't install them in their default directory. So After Effects, by no fault of its own, is a bit confused about that. So I didn't manage to get to your point. Version data for specific clone. Now, the object, I can show you from what I understand, but I couldn't test it. If you're ever in doubt, always bake what you're doing, right? Just bake it into keyframes. So, for example, let's try something. Let's get I don't know, I'm going to get a helix for absolutely no reason. And I'm going to make it editable. Go to points, editable. Go to points. Let's make this a rope, simulation rope. And I'm going to set this to be an anchor point, and this should sort of unfold downwards. Whoop, nice. Always when I have splines, I set this to something like 80 because I want it to be a bit tighter. There we go. Now what I'm going to do here is, let's assume I want to constrain a rigid body to this. So Shift S to go to my Shift S, right? So I'm using my snapping, Shift S again. I'm going to move this up until I'm close to the edge of that point. Good. So now let's go and make this into a, I don't know, simulation soft body. And at the same time, I'm going to go to this and use a connector tag. And let me create an live update. There you go. See that little yellow thing? So I've got my sphere tied to that. So this is going to animate. It's going to fall. It's going to be tied to that. And it's going to sort of stay with a spline, maybe. Let's go to helix. Let's make this 2, just make it more rigid. But now my points are gone. Are they gone? Yes, they are. Go here. Go to this. Make sure you always recreate it. And I want to make sure that my original point here is still attached. So it's on this and set. Okay. I think I've done it right now. It's not going to stretch that much. Now, why did I do all this thing? That is because this will not work, as far as I understand, if you want to export it to After Effects. So you need to cache these, or if you just want this object, you need to bake the keyframes. Now, for a soft body, I don't know if we can go in the soft body. If it was a rigid body, what would happen? There's a very particular thing about soft bodies and rigid bodies. Do I connect here? Create. No, we can't connect to rigid bodies, the spline. Oh, yeah, we can. Of course we can. There we go. So this here, you drag it in here, you select it, and you say, functions bake object. Bake position and rotation. You don't need that. Let's not create a copy, no clean tracks. What should happen here is that the simulation is going to play, and whatever the position of the sphere was going to be throughout the simulation is going to be tied. You don't need any of these now. We're going to have the animation of this as PSR. There you go. So this, you can take it into Cineware. If you want to extract the data, that is, if you want to attach a light or an After Effects element and so forth. Okay. So, oops, that was the one we just saw. And yeah, it's 24 minutes past. Let's see if there's a quick thing about here. I'm curious to know how the Adobe Summit piece was made, the gradient and all that. I do not know what you're referring to. Probably seen it, but can't make the connection right now. Send it through the form, and maybe we can arrange for someone to show us how they did it. So save the rest. Oh, there's quite a bit. Anyway, I have to go because it's 12:30 here, and we've been going at it for about an hour and a half. That's not bad. Please send your questions. I'm going to put the links back here. So go through, copy and paste. I've pasted the link in the chat. Go through this form and post your questions. Try to be as specific as possible, what you're doing and so forth. And yeah, the questions I didn't get to, please put them on the spreadsheet so we have them on record, and we'll get to them whenever we can. What else do we have here? Anything else? No. And don't forget to go to that link. Let me bring this up again. We're here. That link will take you to this page, and you can go to all the other pages, the relevant pages, where we have the Max on events. Get your t-shirt. I'm going to post the code one more time in the chat so you can claim for the month of September your free t-shirt, which is this link over here. So you can go here and put that in here, and only pay for postage and packaging. So there you go. And please use this form to ask your questions. Oh, that's interesting. What just happened here? Oh, I probably clicked on something. Go ask your question over here. And yeah. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I hope that you found solutions for at least some of your problems. Otherwise, just ask the questions because your questions are driving what we do as tutorials and stuff like that. We cannot possibly get to everything, but as you can see, we're trying our best to get to as much as possible. So the next thing I need to do is go here. I'm clicking on the links and prepare for my exit here. And yeah, thank you, everyone, for attending. We will see you soon. And I think on Monday, don't miss the next episode of the architectural visualization with Jörg Vogel. And he's going to show some interesting things with AOVs and stuff like that for the visuals they do at Fuchs and Vogel. Thank you very much for coming, and have a great day.